Good afternoon and welcome to a very, very special day. It is Mr. Nelson Mandela's 93rd birthday today, and it is a day which is celebrated and observed in many, many places for what he stands for and what he has been to the world, to Africa, and especially to South Africa. So it's a very special privilege for the Aspen Institute India and the South African High Commission to jointly and in partnership organize this event, the Nelson Mandela International Day Commemorative Lecture. I welcome you. It's a day dedicated to peace. It's a day dedicated to reconciliation. And we are deeply honored that Mr. Ahmed Kathrada, friend, comrade, prison mate, and close associate of Nelson Mandela, has travelled all the way from South Africa to be with us, to address us this afternoon. He is a renowned South African politician, a former political prisoner, an anti-apartheid activist who was once sentenced to life imprisonment along with Nelson Mandela. So this is the man who you are going to hear today in a few minutes. We are also very privileged to have Mr. Anand Sharma, Minister of Commerce, Industry and Textiles from the Union Cabinet, to introduce Mr. Kathrada. Mr. Anand Sharma, for me, is India's Mr. South Africa. In fact, Mr. Anand Sharma for me and for us is India's Mr. Africa, because for the last 25-30 years, on behalf of India, starting with the Youth Congress leadership which he has consistently worked against apartheid and for the deepest friendship and the deepest relationship between India and South Africa. So it's just perfect for us that he has come here and he will introduce Mr. Kathrada a little later today. We begin today with a song by the Springdale School. This is a school which is very well known in Delhi, but more importantly, it is a school with a 40-year association with South Africa. And I think that's why they are standing here, these boys and girls who are going to sing to you now before we start the speeches and the remarks. So, Mr. High Commissioner, thank you very much for your partnership. Thank you for associating us with this event. Now, children, over to you.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The first song tonight is by Brenda Fassie and is one of the best-selling scores in South Africa, saluting the spirit of womanhood and addressing the need for empowerment of women. Ladies and gentlemen, the school choir presents Memeza.
Every
May I now invite His Excellency the South African High Commissioner to add his welcome to all of us.
To our guest of honor, Dr. Ahmed Kathrada, our special Ms. Barbara Hogan, Excellencies, distinguished guests, students, all protocol observed. It gives me great pleasure and honor to be afforded this opportunity to give the welcoming address to you this important gathering. Allow me from the onset to thank the organizers of this important event. And we are particularly thankful to ASPEN for partnering with South African High Commission in making this day a success. We are also very grateful that Dr. Ahmed Kathrada agreed to grace this occasion despite certain prior commitment. He is our leader, he is our inspirer, he is a man towards whom we have been looking. He has been there. Once again, he agreed, because of love of freedom and peace, he agreed to come over to the shores of India and spread the good word of peace. Excellencies, distinguished guests, on the occasion of Mandela's 93rd birthday, I would like to take this opportunity to remind the youth of today about the values that make Madiba, Gandhi, Martin Luther, and others to be what the world has come to know them for. It is through courage, humility, determination, and character of these stalwarts that the world today is moving towards peaceful coexistence of the human nature. The tireless fight against injustices, oppression, discrimination, and apartheid has made it possible for me and you to determine our future in a fair and a just world. For me, Excellencies, it is quite easy to say you are all welcome here. But because I'm here in India, my second home from home, I can't just say thank you. Enough. Distinguished guests, in celebrating the Nelson Mandela International Day, we are required to extend 67 seconds of our time for the services of our communities. It is through planting back to our respective communities that a better life for all can be created. It is indeed through Madiba's selflessness that we can help fight the scourge of HIV and AIDS, poverty and underdevelopment. I was in South Africa, just arrived about an hour ago. Of course, my deputy is a slave driver. She sent me 2 SMSs that you dare not miss this occasion. So, in South Africa, we are scared of our women. If she doesn't tell you what she's going to do, you better run. So I was lucky to be here. I want, in welcoming you, to also extend a word of gratefulness to my staff in the mission. It is the first time that we have organized this event, and we were lucky to partner with ASPEN and many other people, even the sponsors. They've done it. They have really shown that they are South Africans. South Africans who believe in unity of purpose, who come together shoulder to shoulder. They demonstrated that during the times of apartheid. And then they brought apartheid to its knees. South Africa who wants to be there running with the front runners, who created the best constitution in the world. We are honoring in South Africa. That South Africa that has opened her gates to everyone, every peace-loving person. It is that South Africa, despite detractors, demonstrated to the world that we could stage the world's best soccer tournament that the world has ever seen. We have done it, my girls and sons. Keep it up. Madiba often said, Dr. Mandela, that the freedom of South Africa could not be attributed to him alone. He often says it should be attributed to those people, those leaders in the African National Congress with whom he was running the race, to those people with whom he suffered in jail, to those comrades who went to exile, to those sons and daughters of South Africa who died in exile, whose graves will never see again, to those young men who died with bullet-riddled bodies in the streets of South Africa. Madiba always said freedom of South Africa is attributed to those countries who accommodated South Africans who ran into exile, to those peoples of those countries who were willing to share their meager resources to accommodate our people in the fight for freedom, to the people of India, with whom South Africans fought against apartheid. This is why today I feel, as I'm welcoming you, to also extend a word of thanking India. I know my country is going to thank you and will forever be indebted to India. This also gives me that opportunity to say Madiba attributed the freedom of South Africa to the peoples of India, those who are past and those who are still alive. That's why I need to mention in front of me Anand Sharma. I'm not mentioning him as a person, I'm just saying I want to welcome him. I want to welcome you all. Please, feel free. Listen and learn about Nelson Mandela. Learn about Mahatma Gandhi. The sponsors, as I'm sitting down, welcoming you all. Please, let us go together for a long time, because the legacies of Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi will forever live with us. And we are going to engage in so many programs to make sure that every year we are embarking on those programs to relive the legacies of these two great men. Welcome you all. Let us enjoy. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've already introduced Mr. Anand Sharma. Here he is. I present to you India's Special Envoy to Africa and especially South Africa.
Thank you, Tarandas. Our dear friend and comrade, Ahmed Kathrada, the High Commissioner for South Africa, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, Barbara Hogan, Captains of Industry, dear children, ladies and gentlemen. I am truly privileged to be given this opportunity to come here and to listen to one of the legendary persons whom the world respects, Ahmed Kathrada, to speak on a day which is special, not only to South Africa, to the people of the Republic of India, but those people who believe in human freedom and dignity throughout the world, the 93rd birthday of Madiba Nelson Mandela. I do recall my first meeting after years of wait with Mandela and with Kathy together. We call him Kathy, all those who are his friends and those who love him in South Africa, that's how he's known. And that was on the 11th of March 1990 at the ANC establishment in Morogoro in Tanzania. Because at that time, Indians, citizens, did not travel to South Africa because we had imposed sanctions, both economic and political, on the eve of India's independence. That was a decision taken by Jawaharlal Nehru, the leaders of India's national movement, who were committed to act in solidarity with the people of South Africa against injustice and against discrimination. What impressed me most and touched our hearts, that after over 26 years of incarceration, that too many, many years in solitary confinement at the Robben Island, where I had again the rare privilege many years later to be taken there by Ahmed Kathrada himself. To look at those cells, it's difficult to spread your body, and those bars which he explained so movingly, where they'll stand, hold those bars with their raised hands to lift the bodies, to see the children of the jail wardens, which kept them going year after year. He is a man of courage, he is a man of character, a man of intellect and integrity, both. Rarely do we come across men and women in today's world, which is so complex and difficult to understand, where people like him are there, and leaders of the stature of Nelson Mandela to provide both inspiration and hope to humankind. I also recall that the first flight of Kathy and Mandela out of African continent, the next day we were on the same KLM flight by sheer coincidence. And I had the opportunity to get to talk to them more. They were traveling to Sweden to meet late Oliver Tambo, who was recovering from a stroke there. Since then, my interaction, which have been many, because it was again a privilege for us, me and many of my fellow comrades, we proactively associated with the South African struggle and the Indian anti-apartheid movement. As we saw the children today, there are many who are adults now. Rajni Kumar is here, year after the year, when this day we all celebrated and demanded Nelson Mandela's release and the release of all those who were convicted in June 1994 and condemned to a life sentence, which could only be possible because of the global outrage over what apartheid South Africa was doing. Before the sentence was delivered, there was fear and there was anxiety in South Africa and all over the world as to what would happen what the judge will say. Will it be the verdict of a capital punishment, or will it be that we will lose these great men? At that time, among those who had appealed to the United Nations were not only the leaders of South Africa and Africa, but India's leadership, Indian Parliament, had spoken in one voice. I was very young then. But one thing more I want to share with you, that Kathy, besides his other great qualities, whom Mandela has described as a depository of organizational knowledge, he kept meticulous notes, and he was able to put his pen to paper, write so beautifully that entire journey, the struggle and the freedom, the most historic of all transformations in the second half of the last century, which was befitting the dismantling of apartheid and the emergence of a non-racial, multiracial democracy, with Nelson Mandela as the first president of the Republic. But it is his humility and compassion which is remarkable. And it's only because of that that Madiba, Kathy, and their other fellow freedom fighters could prevent violence, a division, through following a path of truth and reconciliation, bringing together all the people, the oppressors and the oppressed. I have never found in him or in Mandela, even the first time we met, any rancor, any bitterness towards those who did that to him and to other South Africans. To conclude, I'll only quote what Madiba himself has said about Kathy, that he has been so much a part of his life for so long. And the stories are so interwoven that telling one without the voice of the other would be an incomplete narrative. Thank you.
Now our guest of honor and speaker, Mr. Ahmed Kathrada. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honorable Minister, His Excellency our High Commissioner. Thanks also to the High Commission for helping to organize this event. Now, I believe in the mission statement of Aspen, they are focusing on values-based leadership. Now, I just want to mention some of the criteria as far as I can see, requirements for leadership. Not only in politics, but in various fields where leadership is needed. You name it, it can be sports, it can be business, it can be charity organizations, it can be social, cultural organizations. Qualities of commitment, dedication, compassion, integrity, accountability, team spirit, these are all fundamental requirements. But in the situation in which Madiba was placed, there needed to be some additional requirements. Physical courage, as has been mentioned, in the face of adversity, in the face of a death sentence, right from the beginning of the trial until the very end, until the last day when the judge was going to pronounce a sentence, the expectation of death. So it needed physical courage, it needed discipline, it needed foresight, it needed spirit of sacrifice, it needed the surrendering of personal considerations in the interest of the wider cause, and above all, team spirit. As has been said, Madiba has over and over again emphasized that he's always been part of a collective, and that is absolutely fundamental. Soon after he qualified as a lawyer and set up his practice in 1952, it coincided with the first joint defiance campaign by the African National Congress and the South African Indian Congress, where volunteers were called upon to defy certain unjust laws. Madiba had to sacrifice his office work because he was appointed the warden-in-chief of the defiers, and his deputy was Maulvi Ismail Kachalia. That led to a trial of the 20 activists and leaders, which were sentenced to 9 months imprisonment, but all of that was suspended, fortunately. Right from the beginning of his practice, he encountered banning orders which confined him to the magisterial district of Johannesburg, prohibited him from attending gatherings, which also impacted negatively on his practice. But that was a smaller price compared to what he was to pay later on. While he was banned from participating in political activities and gatherings, there took place the Congress of the People, which passed the famous Freedom Charter, which starts off by saying South Africa belongs to all its people, black and white. That is the basis of the policy of the African National Congress, striving for a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic South Africa. And this Freedom Charter led to the massive treason trial, which started with 156 accused from throughout the country of all communities. And from 1958 onwards, there were only 30 who stood trial. And the trial lasted 4.5 years, and all the accused were found not guilty. Soon after the treason trial ended, Madiba was called upon by the ANC to go underground. That meant saying goodbye to his family, to his practice, which came to an end, his legal practice, and living the life of an outlaw, hunted throughout South Africa by the police. He was in disguise, various disguises, and carried on his political activities. And it was while he was underground that he managed to escape from South Africa, to tour Africa and England to garner support for the African National Congress. And soon after he returned to South Africa, he was arrested and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. So that when we were arrested, he had already started serving his sentence. But we come to the Rivonia trial, which started in 1963 to 64. But while Madiba was underground, and the repression, violent repression of every freedom organization, freedom fighters, the repression increased until there was absolutely no room left for peaceful political activity, non-violent activity. And that is when Mr. Mandela suggested that the time had come for an armed struggle. Now, the first phase of the armed struggle was to recruit and train recruits in the manufacture and planting of bombs. Now, all over South Africa, apartheid South Africa, there was discrimination. All government buildings, post offices, railway stations, trains, buses, there were signs, Europeans only, Europeans only. There were also signs such as non-Europeans and dogs not allowed. So the idea of the armed struggle of that phase was to place bombs outside these buildings which had these signs. But care had to be taken. Every recruit had to take an oath that when these bombs are placed, no human beings would be hurt in any way. So the bombs were placed at night. And this armed activity carried on throughout South Africa for some time. We won't go into detail, but that is what led to our arrest, because among the 8 of us who were arrested in 1963, all of us were underground by that time. Among the 8 of us were 4 of the most senior leaders of the African National Congress, Madiba himself, Walter Sisulu, Govan Mbeki, and Raymond Mhlaba. And the rest of us, of course, were attending this meeting where the police pounced on us and arrested us. In those years, there was a law which allowed the security police to detain political suspects for 3 months at a time or 90 days at a time in complete isolation, where you are not even allowed to talk to the people with whom you are arrested. No visitors, no lawyers, no newspapers, no books. You left, the only visitors were your police interrogators, and every time they come to interrogate you about yourself, about your activities and about your colleagues, the message drummed into our heads was, give us this bit of information, otherwise you're going to hang on. And it was a difficult 3-month period where you had to use all your resources to not to give any information that they required. And at the end of those 3 months, of course, we were brought to trial. Madiba was brought back on Robben Island to be the first accused in our trial. From the very first meeting with us and our lawyers, he stressed that this is a political trial, not a criminal trial. In other words, they don't plead for mercy, you don't apologize. Wherever there's genuine evidence, you don't dispute it, but you don't volunteer evidence that is not there. Whoever goes in the witness box must proclaim with pride his organization, the African National Congress, regardless of consequences. Because at the first meeting with our lawyers, they also made it clear that we must expect the very worst, which means the death sentence. And it was in that atmosphere that the whole trial was conducted by the defense. His very well-known address to the court was read by all of us and approved, wherein he said that he had stood for a non-racial democratic South Africa, and if need be, he's prepared to die. So that set the tone for the whole trial, and right, as I say, right up to the last day, the expectation was death. Fortunately, due to I don't know why we were not sentenced to death, but the common belief is that there was international pressure, particularly by India and the Commonwealth and the United Nations, that saved us from the death sentence. So we were sentenced to life imprisonment, landed on Robben Island. Now, under apartheid, of course, literally from the cradle to the grave, you are separated, born separately, grow up separately, go to school separately. So that our eighth accused was white, Dennis Goldberg. As I told you, that our struggle was for a non-racial democratic South Africa. So in the struggle, many white comrades took part, imprisoned, tortured to death, assassinated, and so forth. But Dennis Goldberg was not on Robben Island. He was kept with other political prisoners. Barbara, who was sitting here, she was sentenced to 10 years for treason. But females were also not kept on Robben Island. When we arrived on Robben Island, again under the leadership of Sisulu and Mandela and others, we made it clear. They said, we are no longer leaders, we are ordinary prisoners. We don't make policy, we don't give instructions. Oliver Tambo, Yusuf Dadu, Joe Slovo, Moses Kotane, J.B. Marks, they are our leaders, they make policy. They are the national executive of the African National Congress. Ours is to keep ourselves disciplined, educate ourselves, political education and academic education wherever possible. But in that circumstances, Madiba was isolated by the authorities and offered certain preferences. For instance, when we landed there, the 7 of us, as I said, Dennis Goldberg was not with us. I was at the age of 34. I was the youngest of the 7. And I was the only Indian. And I'm saying so definitely, deliberately. There were, of course, 16 and 17-year-old prisoners on the island. But I'm talking about our group. The first thing we had to do was to change into prison clothes. All my colleagues, Governor Mbeki, 20 years my senior, Madiba, 11 years my senior. Because they were black Africans, they had to wear short trousers throughout the winter. No socks. That was the apartheid law. I, being an Indian, I was given long trousers and socks. The rest of the clothing was the same. The rationale behind short trousers is all Africans, regardless of age or sex, were treated as boys or girls. And you had this common terminology of little children talking of my garden boy, my kitchen girl, and boys, of course, wear short trousers. So our leadership were regarded as boys, and boys wear short trousers. When it came to food, we had the same food in the morning: porridge, soup, coffee. I got more sugar than Mandela, but less than Dennis Goldberg. I got a quarter loaf of bread every day. Mandela got no bread. For 10 years, African prisoners were not given bread. So Madiba was offered to be given the same diet as we would, and he refused. He said, I'll accept it when all prisoners are given the same food. And to us he said that we must struggle for equality on a higher level, because instinctively there were some among our Indian and colored prisoners who said, we want the same food as Mandela. And Madiba said, no, you will be wrong to give up what you got. We must fight for equality on a higher level, not to give up what you got. And that's how our leadership convinced us. It was very difficult, humiliating to be eating bread, but it was a struggle. So within about 3 years, we managed to equalize the food. the clothing, and later on, some years later, the food. As I said, it was very humiliating, but that's how we had to struggle. Struggle, the ultimate form of struggle, of course, is hunger strikes. There again, Madiba, we had said that Madiba and our elders should be exempted. They refused to be exempted. They said we are equals. When it came to work, we were working with pick and shovels, which we had never done before. Very hard. Every day we had bleeding hands and blisters. But Madiba refused the exemption. He said, I am a prisoner like everybody else. When you exempt everybody else from this work, I'll accept it. And that's how he our leadership conducted themselves throughout the years on Robben Island. In 1982, 5 of the 7 of us were transferred to Portmore prison after 18 years, and 3 years later Madiba was separated from us, and there he was kept in isolation. And that is when he started, according to the policy of the African National Congress, by every means, through the political struggle, through the armed struggle, through the solidarity of the world, to force the enemy to the negotiating table. So Madiba established contact with the other side, made it clear that he is a prisoner, he has got no right to negotiate. The government must negotiate with the African National Congress in Lusaka. But he will pave the way towards talks. Paving the way means release all political prisoners, unban the organizations, allow the exiles to come back, and then start talking. And they acceded to that demand after years, after 3-4 years of negotiation, or not negotiation, because he said he's not negotiating. After 3 or 4 years of talks, the enemy conceded to that. That's how we got released. That's why other prisoners got released. That's how the organizations were unbanned and talks took place. Now, I don't want to go on with this, but to say that when Madiba was released and the other political prisoners was released, they came out with a message of forgiveness. Message of forgiveness, reconciliation, nation building. Unlike other colonial countries, in South Africa, our oppressors were South Africans. In other colonial countries, the oppressors came from other countries, and after liberation they went back to their homes. In South Africa they had no other home to go to. So that was the only policy that we could carry on, and that is the policy of reconciliation and forgiveness. So came out without bitterness, without hatred, without revenge, stretched out his arms of forgiveness and reconciliation. Let us work together, he said, to build the new non-racial South Africa under one flag, under one national anthem. And that is what happened since his release. He was merely echoing the policy of the African National Congress. As he said, he is not making policy, he was just carrying out that policy. And today we are 17 years old as a young democracy. We've got a long way to go, but what we have succeeded in doing in 1994 is we have won dignity for the oppressed people who had been robbed by the apartheid regime of their dignity, of their humanity. And dignity means much more than wealth, much more than education. If you haven't got dignity, all the wealth and all the education means nothing. We won our dignity. For our white compatriots, we won security, because they were insecure. They had believed that comes a black government, we'll lose our houses, all the shops will close, and there'll be chaos in the country. We want security for them. So together, black and white, we are striving still in the 17 years to build the new non-racial, non-sexist, democratic South Africa under one anthem, under one flag. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have an announcement to make. The South African High Commission wants to invite all of you to tonight. We have organized an event in celebration or in doing our 67 minutes. We are going to assemble at 8 o'clock at the South African High Commission. For those of you who are cyclists, bring your bicycles. We are going to cycle from the High Commission along the Nelson Mandela Mark at the Robert U-turn, and then a stop over at the Grand Hotel. If you don't have a bicycle, wear your tekkies. We're doing the walk from the South African High Commission to the Grand Hotel, where we'll be getting refreshments. That is the announcement. 8 o'clock tonight. Walking. Those who are cycling will leave the High Commission at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great speech, Mr. Kathrada. Took us down memory lane. I think we close with a song. So are the children going to come up now and make it snappy? We're looking forward to listening to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our school choir now concludes with a popular foot tapping score sung originally by the daughter of South Africa, Miriam Makeba. We present Pata Pata.
Bada is the name of a dancer. We did down the Ponsen way, and everybody starts to move. Oh yes, they do. As soon as Bata Bata begins to play, Saturday night, it's Bata Bata time. Oh yes, it is. The music keeps going all night long till the morning sun begins to shine. Yes.
Great. What a wonderful way to end this program. And I hope we will meet again 1 year from now on this very special day. And I want to finish by thanking Mr. Amit Kathrada again for coming here, for Barbara Hogan to be here and give us that support. You've been, like many other leaders of your country, in prison for many years. We acknowledge your tremendous contribution. To Mr. Anand Sharma, who I said is the Special Envoy of the people of India to South Africa, the High Commission and the staff. High Commissioner, you've been away, but your tough colleagues have been wonderful to work with, and we look forward to working with them. And finally, to my own Aspen staff, led by Kiran Pasricha and her team, who've been very good to work together with the High Commission. Thank you very much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us for a cup of tea outside. Thank you.
एक ही और पूछ के